Welcome to the Restore for Life show, where wetlands thrive and wonders grow. From tiny tadpoles to reeds so tall, we'll dive into the magic that binds it all. Meet Sam Tofts, who will be your host through the story of wetlands, where science, stories, and inspiring insights come together. Let's uncover the importance of these ecosystems.
Hello and welcome back to the Restore for Life podcast. In today's episode, we will be taking a slightly different approach and we'll be diving into how art can be used to engage members of the public and create conversations and awareness around wetland ecosystems. So who better to do that than our guest today, Maria Nalbantova. Maria is an incredible visual artist from Bulgaria who uses all sorts of techniques in her work to explore the relationships between society and the natural environment, and she uses scientific, political, even mythological lenses to do this. So she spent a lot of time working in Marsh in Bulgaria, which has been the focus of a number of her works. Welcome, Maria. Thanks for joining us on the podcast.
Hello, thank you very much for the invitation.
Well, it's a pleasure to have you. So, I guess we'll jump straight in because you've covered quite a lot of different themes and materials in your time as an artist. What inspired you to work with wetlands and use natural materials?
Storytelling. This is something very important as part of my work. Actually, it's something that personally I need both hearing and sharing stories, whether real or imagined. And I engage with specific places. In that case, we're speaking today for the Dragoman Marsh, but for me, it's important somehow to engage with specific places, their materials, concepts, and very often their contradictions. For me, it's important to tell stories through places and processes that reflect their local context, but also somehow they point broader and even global issues. And yes, the materials that I'm using depend on the topics, on the themes that I'm exploring, and they emerge somehow naturally from the places where I'm working. And of course, they're always very connected with the context of the place. And for example, in Dragoman Marsh, we can speak a bit later about reeds.
Yes, yeah, you've done quite a lot of work with that. So were you kind of new to wetland or marshland ecosystems when you started working with them, or had you had a lot of interaction sort of when you were younger?
Well, I'm inspired by the idea of sinking into the stories, into the history of different places, especially wetlands, because they're, for me, kind of liminal spaces. They reflect a wide range of socio-political, but ecological as well, topics, and somehow they meet in a place where we can see how complex ecosystems can regenerate, of course, with the human assistance. But it's very interesting to see how plants, fungi, microorganisms, bacteria, and animals and people are coexisting in one place, in one ecosystem. Wetlands are interesting also because for a long time wetlands were seen as places of darkness and decay, somehow viewed with a fear and suspicious, associated with malaria, miasma, mosquitoes, of course, sometimes even strange creatures and monsters. I don't know. There are a lot of stories, of course. But in the last century, we saw how those places are disappearing and losing such a important ecosystem, also we are losing something which affecting our human life. And this is and now that point is very interesting for me because I'm trying to understand why we are doing some kind of processes of drying, of course, using the land as an agriculture, and what happens with that places, why that changes, that shifting in the landscape was happening.
So yeah, you explore kind of some of these themes in one of your works, Paradise Marsh, where you're
Yeah.
really and where you're kind of trying to emphasize, if I'm correct, the sort of connectivity with with marshland ecosystems. So how do you try and introduce people to these concepts and their qualities through your art?
Paradise Marsh, it's my solo exhibition. It was initiated by Yara Bubnova, the director back in time of the National Gallery, and the curator Martina Jordanova. So the exhibition um, was in Hall 19 in Square 500, Kvadrat 500 in Sofia at the National Gallery. But it's interesting because in that hall, there is a 4th century ancient tomb. It's on permanent display, and that context somehow naturally led me to reflect on life and time and place. And I began thinking around questions um, like what is being born and growing here in our lives. And for the project, I transformed reeds into a new material that was inspired by do-it-yourself biomaterials and bioplastics. So I collected bundles of reeds during the Marsh autumn clearing around the time of the ornithological bird ringing camp. And at that time, my studio was at the business park in Sofia. So also I needed help because it was a lot of work. And my studio became kind of laboratory for that material experimentation. And even I invited people from different businesses to come in their lunch break and help me cutting and grinding reeds. Yes, so that was also somehow interesting how the people outside of that ecosystem can be connected through some process. And then, of course, I invited them to come at the opening. So the material became the skin of my sculptures. They were kind of cocoons. Actually, from above the marsh, it's looking like a cocoon or an embryo, something holding the potential for life to come. And I also did some field recordings, sound of the land, air, and water. There are 3 sculptures consisting that sounds in some kind of behavior. And inside the sculptures, light and sound were woven together. And the audience were allowed not only to see, but also to hear and even to smell the marsh. Um, so for the sound, I worked together with the media artist Antoni Rajekov. Also in the exhibition, there was a video sculpture titled "Certain Aspects of Unsteady Walking."
Could you explain what a video sculpture is, actually, if, for those that don't
Yeah,
know?
the video sculpture, it's my boots, the boots with which I'm going in the marsh, but very often, because the reeds are very sharp, so very often it's possible to uh, step on the sharp reed and then to have a hole on your boot. And then I decided to erase the bottom part of that boots and there was a video, the video which was shown in the booths. It's a footage coming from the photo traps. That photo traps are installed by researchers from the Balkani Wildlife Society. And because I'm working very closely with them, I'm not alone there. I'm very happy that we're working together with people that are specialists in different narrations and ways. And for me, it was very interesting to see through that photo traps how the life in the marsh existing when we as a people are not there. So in the booths, we are seeing what's happening when we are not there.
Mm. So you mentioned working with researchers. What do you find there's sort of different, you as an artist and them as sort of more like sort of scientists, do you find there's very different perspectives when kind of approaching the wetland or marshlands?
Yes, of course, there are different perspectives from the biologists, but from an artist as well, of course, but also like some people, locals that are living there. And this is very interesting to have some common space and then to share how we are experience such places and for example, for me, it's very interesting to hear the stories of the people that are living around. They know a lot of stories. Some of them are kind of fiction, but if they believe it's a true, then also I can believe it's a true. Uh, and of course, through the scientists, there are a lot of data and facts. So we can see, for example, the curve of the water through the years. So it's kind of breathing the marsh. It's the level of the water, how it's changed. And sometimes it's very sad because, for example, this year the level of the water is very, very low. But then somehow we can reflect on that and speak about that and raise a curiosity. And this is very important. Once when the people are curious about some place or some kind of process, then a lot of different lines are starting to, or doors are starting to be open, and then we're trying to understand more each other and to hear deeper, and even to hear not only our human voices, but also the voices of all the other species in the marsh.
Mm. So do you feel like the sort of the bit where the art comes in is to kind of engage people and get that curiosity into
Yes,
the marshlands?
curiosity. Curiosity is very important
Mm.
point. Yeah.
So when you work with when you have worked with researchers, is there a space which allows you to kind of sit around and communicate with each other, or do you kind of actively seek out the researchers to speak with them?
I'm working with them.
Yeah. Okay.
Um, it's yes, because of the residency that I'm involved. It's 4 years residency, which is fantastic. It's called Waterlands Artistic Engagement, and it's between 6 countries. In Bulgaria, I'm working together with the Balkani Wildlife Society and WWF Bulgaria. And from the beginning, really, I started to help them. For example, during the bird ringing camp, I didn't know anything about that process, or cutting reeds, or placing photo traps, or even following how the little gray crane is growing, because after 66 years um, of the gray crane it's nesting back in Bulgaria. And it's so interesting, 66 or even around, maybe even more, maybe even 100 years. But well, officially it's around 66 years. There was no great cranes, and right now they're back again. So very often we're doing a bird watching, but following the cranes. And so it's not really, I'm very much involved in all the processes. So
Yeah.
it's not something separated.
Do you feel like so you've obviously learned quite a lot from them. Do you feel like you've had any kind of unique perspectives which maybe have rubbed off on them?
Yes, because maybe for me, Dragoman Marsh, it's kind of mirror, reflecting many social and political processes in Bulgaria, and not only the Balkans, and yeah, beyond. And I think through that kind of metaphors and reflection through art, there's some kind of new perspectives that I can share with them, and they can reflect on that. And also for me, it's the history of the marsh. It's very important because the marsh at the moment, nowadays, it's divided into multiple private properties. It's located at the edge of the European Union. It's along the migratory corridor for birds via Aristoteles, but it's also route for migration of animals, plants, and people and stories. And all those different elements are very inspiring, and I'm trying somehow to communicate them through my projects.
I feel like in Shameless Ashes in 2024, it shows off a lot of this, right? It's about the fire. Well, please, yeah, tell us more.
Shameless Ashes. So Shameless Ashes, I choose actually more specifically to speak about the absence of shame, because it has a powerful impact on societies. Um, it's tied to corruption, lack of respect, and erosion of dignity, but sh shameless ashes, it's directly rooted to the fire at the Dragoman Marsh that happened in 2020. And the fire destroyed around 80% of the whole marsh vegetation. It broke out in January during very cold weather, which is unexpected for such an event. And the exact cause remains unknown. And in Bulgaria, fires like this often happened with motives such as clearing land for investments or setting financial kind of benefits or personal conflicts. And the installation, so Shameless Ashes, the installation explores the side of human behavior where acts of like an arson happen without shame or guilt. The work includes burnt pieces of wood, burnt metal door from the bird watching tower, and a 6-meter drawing made with the burnt wood pieces collected later. I did it in 2024. So still nowadays, 5 years after the fire, we can find a lot of burnt pieces, of course. But yeah, at the same time, Marsh regenerate very well. So the fire not only destroyed the fire actually destroyed also the visitor infrastructure that was yeah, also something important because that was the possible way of the people to enter that place. So
Yeah.
I created a landscape, that drawing of the burnt terrain, and I hope somehow to offer a sense of hope. I hope. the sense of hope with
Hoping for
that
hope.
a new landscape. Yeah.
So it feels like, especially with using the burnt objects, you're trying to convey kind of strong emotions with this kind of work. So do you think like an emotional connection is key for sort of long-term public involvement?
I think so. Yes. When when it's created that kind of reflection and curiosity and empathy through projects and works, artworks, I think it's that gives a voice to different um, species and processes and make that very complex ecological issues more accessible for the people, of course, but also with yeah, once again, curiosity.
Yeah. Oh no, that was said really nicely. So yeah, it seems like artistic residencies such as the one you're doing, they seem quite important in the sort of engagement of the wider public. What what makes you happy to see in people when they've interacted with your art?
Um, of course, it's very important to see how they feel and learn more, but also I think it's important when there is a critical reflection that it's arising. It's not only about emotions, but also kind of reflection and critical reflection, because some people they never been in such wetlands, yeah. But um, once when they learn more, then maybe they will have some kind of inspiration to go there or to learn more about that places. So this is something that it's kind of important, and I'm happy when I see it.
I'm sure you are. So it's like a nice kind of introduction into the wetlands, I guess. Right? So yeah, we're kind of running out of time at this point, but thanks so much for joining us today. And as usual, we always like to ask our guests for some kind of recommendation for our audience. What do you have for us today?
Um, I'm very inspired by Lynn Margulis, and recently I saw the film Symbiotic Earth, how Lynn Margulis rocked the boat and started the scientific revolution. So this is my proposal.
Amazing. Well, yeah, as usual, we'll put a link for that in our show notes. And along with some links to your work if anyone is interested and wants to find out more. Well, yeah, Maria, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much.
And that's been this episode of the Restore for Life podcast. Thank you for listening and see you next time.
Thank you, Sam, and a big thanks to our listeners tuning in to the Restore for Life podcast. If what you've been listening to is of interest to you and you'd like to learn more about Restore for Life, you should check out our website and our social media, which can be found in the description of this podcast. Until next time.